the people who are in charge only see autistic children acting autistic. They don't ask about inner life experiences. They don't ask about feelings. They don't ask about distress. All they see is a kid who's flapping, or a kid who's biting their fingernails, or gradually get more and more irritated and runs off. They only see these things. And if this quote unquote treatment forces the kid to just sit there and suffer silently, then they say, oh, look, the kid's not doing anything anymore, and the kid is not doing that behavior. Therefore, this works because that behavior I don't like, I no longer see that behavior, without seeing any of the other underlying stuff. Episode 62, Protecting Kentucky Kids. Welcome to the Autistic Culture Podcast. Each episode, we dive deep into autistic contributions to society and culture by introducing you to some of the world's most famous and successful autistics in history.
Before we get started, a quick disclaimer on how we use the word autistic. The purpose of this show is not to diagnose the people or characters we discuss as autistic. While some may have announced being autistic, what we're really sharing here is our observation of what is representative of autistic culture. It can sometimes be difficult for autistic people to celebrate our natural tendencies and traits due to the perception of autism as a disorder that needs to be fixed, a long history of damaging medical interventions to get autistics to fit in with mainstream culture, and protective masking skills many of us have developed to try to stay safe.
Whether you are autistic or just love someone who is, your hosts, Dr. Angela Lauria, the linguistic autistic,
and licensed psychological practitioner Matt Lowry, welcome you to take this time to be fully immersed in the language, values, traditions, norms, and identity of Autistica. Hey, Angela.
Well, hey, Matt.
How are you doing this fine day?
I am fantastic.
Kentucky is a fine state. It's full of horses, which are fine for our people.
You know what? I didn't see a single horse. Well, maybe at your house I saw some horses.
Yeah. We've got them hidden just in case, because we don't want anyone to walk off with them.
Okay, I see.
Did you know we actually have a law here where you can't walk around with an ice cream cone in your pocket because you might steal a horse?
I didn't, but I can see that. I can see the concerns.
It's still on the books. Yeah.
Okay.
Because at some point there was enough people walking around with ice cream cones in their pockets that horses would just follow them away.
A place I've never thought to put an ice cream cone. I will tell you one thing I was very surprised at was the number of ice cream shops in your fine town. And I did actually make it to Freddy's and got myself a custard.
I like Freddy's. Freddy's is new to me. I like their chicken club. I found my same food there, and I go there for multiple chickens club.
Chickens club. I'm pretty sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So listen, a lot of our listeners think that we knew each other in person before we did this podcast, but that was actually the first time we met in person, and it was amazing. Thank you for such a good time. We cracker barreled. We
got toys.
We got toys, which, by the way, mine was an adorable little lamb. I will show you. I will put on my bookshelf.
Oh, nice.
Matt bought me a toy, everybody. It was very good, too, actually. I haven't given Paul his yet. So
you can't go to Cracker Barrel and not get toys. That's the way.
So that was fantastic. But also we had some interesting conversations about what is happening over there in Kentucky. I thought we should share with our listeners. So this is a special episode, everyone. Matt, why don't you set this up for us?
So full disclaimer. I am a member of the Kentucky Advisory Council on Autism, which has the very unfortunate acronym CACA. It is a governing body that has been established to help the governor make decisions about autistic people and the care of autistic people. So full disclosure, I am a member of this council, and these the viewpoints that I am about to say absolutely do not represent those of the council. They represent me, Matt Lowry, as an individual, with my individual opinions and my individual brain, not representing the council body at large.
Got it.
That is the disclaimer. That is the legal disclaimer that I must announce to the world, lest I misrepresent the council itself. Because I can't speak for the council, I can only speak for me, and I am mad. So this is the thing. We've talked a lot about privilege on here. We've talked a lot about how there are a lot of marginalized people in the world, and specifically in the state, that do not have a voice. We've talked about any time that I can use my professional, male, middle-aged, cishet privilege to be able to bring awareness to issues of people. It is my obligation as a decent human being to do so. So there is currently this thing going on in the state of Kentucky that we really, really need to talk about, that we need to get the word out so that we can have the people voice support of our cause, hopefully, so that we can make you aware of what's going on. And what is going on is a couple of weeks ago at this point, there was a woman who is, quote, a proud autism mom. This woman wants to cure the autism out of her child. And when this woman was on TV, delightful kid, just sitting back, playing on his iPad, listening to, have his headphones on. Seems like a great kid. But this woman was talking about the plight that she experiences because she has to drive her child from Kentucky to Cincinnati every day to subject him to ABA, applied behavior analysis. So I guess we should say what ABA is. For those of you who
feel like our listeners know, but we can set this up a little. If you're new around here and this is the first time you're hearing about ABA, Matt's going to give you a 411, but I'm also going to make sure we add in the show notes some references for you, because it's more than it would be a whole episode.
Oh yeah, yeah. We've got lots. So she brings this child to ABA, quote unquote, therapy for 8 hours of therapy a day, 5 days a week, 40 hours a week of quote unquote therapy to try to make this child not autistic.
And like one of the things I feel like you have to say about ABA is the, I'm going to use the word coercion, but that parents feel, because I'm rolling my eyes when you say autism, mom, but also that there's this whole like window of opportunity where if you don't get your kids into this 8 hours of therapy 5 days a week in this very specific time, then all hope is lost and your child is unfixable. And so that pressure of like, oh, I have to make this decision and a medical doctor is telling me like I have to sign up right now and the only slot available is in Cincinnati, and like that is a challenging situation to be in as a parent because you don't want to do something wrong and the window is about to close.
Exactly.
And the research is out there on ABA, and like I said, we'll share some of it, but also there's a pretty heavy lobbying group who is invested in you not finding that research. And
that's the thing, because as we've talked about before, self-acceptance is free. Accommodations are pretty cheap. But ABA is a $1.8 billion a year industry that claims, irrationally so, to fix autistic kids because, because like you said, they say the people who believe in ABA are, say, well, if you get a 5-year-old in ABA and if they spend 5 years in ABA, then soon they'll be acting like a 10-year-old. And you say, yes, I can't imagine why spending 5 years doing something would cause you to act 5 years older. That is an amazing thing. Well done. I can't imagine how that works. And this is a big because that's the thing. Autistic kids develop at different rates, just like neurotypical kids develop at different rates. It's all about the individual brain. And this promise of snake oil, this promise of a cure, is disingenuous and serves only to make a lot of money. And there's a lot of people who are misinformed about how to properly care for autistic kids. So there's a lot of ex-ABA people in the world who are autistic and didn't realize it because all they knew was, I want to help autistic kids. And people told them ABA because it's essentially a cult.
Right. And I will say, we did get into this. I just remembered on the episode with Maisie on careers and autism. So obviously Maisie started in ABA, and she talks about her journey to realizing, like, hey, this isn't actually working and it's doing harm.
Yeah.
I'm going to do something different. But that is very hard to move a multi-billion-dollar industry to say, let's just give this up.
Yeah, because that's the thing. The industry is sinister. The treatment is sinister. I don't blame the people who were duped into ABA because, again, they have a very good advertising. They have very good lobbyists. They have a lot of things in place to manipulate the system in ABA's favor. So if you are listening to this and you have been told in the past to use ABA, I don't want to shame you for that. If you have been told in the past that, yes, you should get a career in ABA, I don't want to shame you for that. Because, again, there's no shame in doing better once you know better.
Yeah.
It's just making the same mistake over and over
Autism
again.
Mom is at this meeting. Yes. She's like, I got to drive to Cincinnati because my window will close if I don't get my kid into 8 hours of therapy a day.
Exactly.
When autistic people find a special interest, they go deep and have a lot of knowledge, even if they don't have that formal education background to go with it. If you want to capture your spin in a book, check out Angela's work at differencepress.com, differencepress.com, and find out more about becoming an author and establishing your credibility with a book.
So anyway, the problem here is that this person went to a specific state senator who has ties to ABA, who has been trying since 2019 to introduce a bill that would require all Kentucky schools to put ABA in every school in order to, quote unquote, fix the autistic children. And this would be a massive, massive financial opportunity for this senator. And a massive, massive financial opportunity for the ABA industry, because we live in a very capitalistic world that is based on someone profiting somehow off of someone. And we also live in a world where a lot of autistic people are victimized and profited off of to our detriment. So again, I am in a position where I've got a podcast. And we've got all you nice listeners, or just one person in Oklahoma who listens to us 80,000 times. In that case, Jerry, you're our buddy. Thank you very much. We love you. We'll send you 80,000 fruit baskets.
Right. Okay, so Autism Mom says, I don't want to drive to Cincinnati. I would like ABA to be in school. That way I could just take my kid to school or put my kid on the bus and they could get their therapy right here at school and on the state of Kentucky's dime.
Yeah. What's
the next step?
So everybody in the Senate essentially said, oh my, what a harrowing story. I can't imagine how difficult it might be to raise a child with autism, because the autism is a very disturbing thing that I've heard about, but never experienced myself.
But when I hear about it on TV, they always play very sad minor key music. So I know
where we
it's
look
very
off into
sad.
the distance and, are thinking only of trains.
My child, they seemed so normal when they were born, and then they lost their language skills.
They contracted the tism sometime around age 2 and became a train-filled robot of some kind, I guess.
Right.
And So this is the image that all these people have, and this is why we must educate them, because they want to create a brand new entity to advise them on what autism is and how to help autistic people, when
But
I am
wait,
all,
didn't you tell me there already is a Kentucky Advisory Council on autism?
I did.
Kaka?
And that's the interesting thing about this here council that I am on, which I do not represent in any way because of my personal opinions. We do have this, but we report directly to the governor, and we're trying to say, hey, perhaps we could be of use because there's a lot of us autistic people on this autism council that we can give you some autistic experience because we're autistic professionals and autistic people. And so therefore, I have brought some of my rowdy friends here who may or may not be part of the autism council and may or may not be autistic. I can't speak for other people because once again, I can only speak for myself, Matt Lowry, not the council itself.
Well, let's have your friends introduce themselves and we'll find out. Yeah. Go ahead. Start us off. We've got a couple guests from the council here to kind of share what's going on and what should be going on and what is going on. So let's
and
meet
don't
your
forget
friend.
to do your disclaimers because otherwise Batman will come in and punch us in the kidney. So, Winter, you want to start us off?
I suppose I am. I'm Winter Type 01 Alice, and my opinions are not those of those useless neurotypical cowards on the Autism Advisory Council.
We're not pulling any punches today, folks.
Okay, Winter.
And how about you, Kat?
Wait, Winter, I just want to
sorry.
jump in. What's your, how did you end up on the council? I know about Matt's background, but how was it that you came to be on the council?
I ended up on the council as a result of a years-long organizing campaign by autistic self-advocates in Kentucky to force autistic voices into this council that was entirely neurotypical and at times had one token autistic representative. But as a result of our organizing, we now have an autistic co-chair and I think 6 autistic members, which is still a tiny minority of the 40-person advisory council.
Wow.
So our work goes on.
But we're very loud. And you're the head of what organization?
Autistics United Kentucky.
And does that have a website? Can we put it in the show notes?
It doesn't.
Oh,
I have a
that's
website,
okay.
though.
Oh, do you? Yeah,
Nice.
You can put that
We'll
on the website.
make
We'll put it in the show
sure.
notes.
Yeah, we'll make sure that all goes into the show notes. What does Autistics United Kentucky do? Or what is your mission?
Well, we're an autistic self-advocacy organization. We were originally a chapter of ASAN until leaving them at some point in 2020. And we're a group run entirely by autistics, and we do a variety of tactics to we've done a lot of conferences and presentations and trainings, and we've gone into schools. We've talked to various types of people.
Yeah, I have a sense of it. You're an advocacy group.
Yes, that's what I'm getting at.
That works.
And this seems to be up your alley, advocating for the children of Kentucky.
And I'm guessing the council, your mandate isn't just children. You are the council that advises the governor on all issues, children, adults.
Oh, yeah.
And other.
Ostensibly, the council does not just exist to be about children. It's only that, 2.5 of our 3 subcommittees are related to children, and then half of the last one has to share the entire rest of human age range.
Fascinating.
Because, the neurotypicals don't understand that we grow up. Because, we all age out of the autism at 18.
People grow out of it. Yeah, I heard you grow out of it. That's what happens.
Because that's the reason insurance doesn't reimburse me. Because they said that adults can't be autistic. So.
Great news.
You got that critical period to get all your ABA in to make you a real boy or girl.
Wait, but if you can't be autistic as an adult and you need ABA to fix you, if you didn't have ABA, what happens when you grow up? Do you just self-combust at 18 or?
Yeah. Well, the autism just implodes.
Yeah. All right, Kat has an opinion, and she is our next introduction. So,
sorry,
what happens to autistic people autistic kids who grow up who do not get ABA? Kat, tell us that, and then tell us a little about you.
Well, my name's Kat, and I attend college, and I also partake in some of the counselage that happens, and I represent myself and maybe some other autistic people who feel the same way as I do, and not said councils or institutions, just to be on the safe side.
Yes.
I am very interested. What I am studying and what I'm trying to work toward is being involved in autistic adults who do grow up, and trying to find a way to make us want to stay alive for longer, because trigger warning, our suicide rate is like way higher than the general population. And a lot of that happens in adulthood. And especially if you are autistic and you don't have an intellectual disability that's co-occurring, I think it's something like 9 times higher in the general population. And interestingly enough, it's even higher in AFAB autistics than AMAB. And that is really interesting because it's reversed in the general population. So I think that there needs to be more research done on that. And we know that ABA causes people to, score more highly on scales that rate PTSD symptomology.
Yeah.
So people don't grow out of autism. They just mask it and then don't feel like they can reach out for help, or therapists don't know what they're doing. So that's what I want to be for people.
Love that. Winter, I feel like you had a thought on that.
Oh, I was wondering if this statistic actually did designate it this way as AFAB and AMAB, because I am skeptical due to the extremely high suicide rate of trans women.
Yeah, the study that I've seen on that came out of Australia, and it might be a different one than you're referencing, Kat, but we'll put some links in the show notes too. And I believe the way it was worded in that Australian study was just women and girls.
Yeah.
And then I've seen some separate studies that kind of talk about trans people and suicide rates, but yeah.
Right. I only wanted
well,
to
there's a huge
that.
overlap. Go ahead, sorry.
We've never had 4 people on here before, so that's the balance. Yeah, sorry. Go on.
I only wanted to clarify that AFAB and AMAB aren't just drop-in replacements for man and woman.
Yeah, it's a great point, and like the whole, again, looking at this as a state senator or as a parent, it seems like there is a medical issue because doctors are diagnosing it. It's in the DSM. Like, I know this isn't how we see it, but there's a medical issue. There is a treatment for the medical issue. The treatment will make everything better. And therefore, we should give access to this treatment to as many people as possible. That's the narrative that's out there, and really looking into and understanding the damage that ABA does is a really important counter narrative, because I don't think the senators and the autism moms are like, let's set our children up for suicide and, other maladaptive behaviors. They are thinking this would be helpful. So,
and that's the thing about ABA, because it is applied behavior analysis, it only analyzes behavior. It doesn't take into account thoughts. It doesn't take into account feelings. It doesn't take into account subjective experience of the autistic person. So therefore, for instance, so the guy who created ABA, Ivar Lovaas, believed that if a child was flapping their arms too much, you should totally shock that child with an electric device in order to make them stop flapping, because, boy, that's weird, huh? So there's still a place in the U.S., the Judge Rotenberg Center, that straps electrodes to children and shocks them. I should have put a trigger warning on that one. But this is the thing. The people who are in charge only see autistic children acting autistic. They don't ask about inner life experiences. They don't ask about feelings. They don't ask about distress. All they see is a kid who's flapping, or a kid who's biting their fingernails, or gradually get more and more irritated and runs off. They only see these things. And if this quote unquote treatment forces the kid to just sit there and suffer silently, then they say, oh, look, the kid's not doing anything anymore, and the kid is not doing that behavior. Therefore, this works because that behavior I don't like, I no longer see that behavior, without seeing any of the other underlying stuff.
Yeah.
And this is sorry. Yeah, Kat, go for it.
I was just going to say, this is why I'm just kind of against behaviorism in general, especially over populations that have difficulty communicating anyway, or have communication differences that like doctors aren't picking up on. It's like if you're already having trouble explaining what your internal state is like, which is not related directly to like intelligence or anything. It's just like a processing thing. You're just not going to be able to ask for help, and people aren't going to get it. Be like, oh, well, as long as you look right.
Yeah,
works for me.
And that's why it's dangerous, and that's why we have to have that's why we are using the Force today. Because a Jedi uses the Force for knowledge and defense, never for attack. So all of you listeners who understand this, Winter is going to share a proposal that if you can, because I didn't clear it with you ahead of time. I just realized that. Sorry about that. But Winter knows more about this than just about anybody, because you've been the one that's been doing all the legwork. But we are going to talk to you, dear listeners, today, and we are going to ask for your help in defending the children of Kentucky, in learning more about this situation. Go out, research the situation.
Okay, so just to set this up, we've got a state senator spurred on by an autism mom to say, let's put ABA in the schools. They've decided to form a council. The existing council that reports to the governor and not the legislature is like, hey, what about us?
Yeah.
And now what's happening, Winter, maybe you can catch us up. Was that a good layout? And then can you catch us up with what's happening now?
Yes, that's accurate as to what's happening. And what's happening right now is the council's putting together our statement on this, and that will say that we haven't completely come to consensus on it. So I'm not just going to
what do you think, just like as a person,
not as a representative of the council.
Not as a representative of the council, but what I have an opinion as an outsider, which is like, hey, don't start a new council, use this council. But what do you actually think should happen? Do you think there should be a new council? Should they use you? Do you guys have a more nuanced, or not you guys, you personally, Winter, as a human? But what do you think the best solution is in this situation?
Oh. Things I shouldn't say on public channels.
Well, or that you can share. My thought here is that, like, the most important thing, which you mentioned earlier, is autistic voices have to be a part of, whether there's a council, no council, somebody just making coffee for the state senator every morning, like whatever happens, we need autistic voices to be part of that. And I wonder if you agree with me on that based on some of the other work you've done, and is that, do other people agree? Do the autism moms and the state senator, do they agree with that, or is that something we have to fight for?
Obviously they don't agree with that, or they would have invited us to the table in the first place. And
do you think they just maybe didn't think of it, like it didn't cross their mind?
I think this is a very deliberate counter-organizing strategy by autism moms to undermine the Autism Advisory Council in the moment, just as soon as autistics have become a dominant voice in it.
And to clarify, the term quote-unquote autism mom refers to a person who will say the phrase, love the child, hate the autism, or I fought a battle with autism today and the autism won, as opposed to autistic parent, autistic or a parent of an autistic child, autistic advocate, because there is a very distinct difference between the community, the autism community versus the autistic community. And again, when we refer to autism moms, we don't refer to the moms of children who are autistic. We refer to the neurotypical mothers who see their autistic children and say, "Boy, I wish these children were more neurotypical."
Mm-hmm.
Which again,
good clarification.
It's a bit of a cultural bias there, if you will. So again, for everyone out there who says, "I love my autistic kid. I don't understand autism, but I love my kid and I want my kid to be the best person they can be," you are of the autistic community, and we welcome you, and we really love your support. If you say, "Boy, I love my child, but I wish I could rewire their brain and make them magically not autistic," then God, why are you listening? But yeah, it's we would like to change your minds, maybe.
Yes, I'm like, I would like them to listen. Yeah. We've gotten letters from parents like that. I actually sent you one. Was it a sock refuser? I sent you a video of.
Oh, yeah. And, yes.
It was a mom who was like trying to do the right thing for her kid and listening to this show and understanding some of her kid's special interests a little more led her to realize, which is why we do these special. This isn't our normal format for our podcast, but these special episodes are because we know people are listening to us because they want to celebrate autistic culture, but they want to do that while also trying to fix their kids. So if that's you, we get the impulse, and we're not saying live with every symptom. That's not what it is, but it's a different holistic approach to it. And some of those symptoms that you might think are autism may not actually be autism, but trauma from trying to make us act in a way that is not aligned with who we are and how our brains actually work.
Yeah. For instance, like, yes, it's a problem if your kid runs off, but autism doesn't make us run off. Trauma does that. It's a problem if your kid bites themselves really hard. But again, that's not the autism speaking. That is the trauma and the frustration. And that's why we promote understanding. And we want people to understand, and we want to teach. But again, if we would prefer not to be cured, thank you. So
one of the things, Winter, I just want to talk about with having autistic voices heard. One of the things that we get asked all the time as hosts of this show is like, how can I find good help, whether it's teachers or therapists? And one of the things I say is look at the organization and are autistic people involved. That's not going to tell you everything, but that's a place to start. So I'd love to hear just your thoughts about why it's important to include autistic people in conversations about what happens to autistic people.
Yeah, well, autistic people are the experts on autism. We have a lifetime of lived experience with it. We're the only people who should be listened to on the subject of autism.
And Kat, you want to chime in here? You're obviously building a career in this space. So
yeah, the main thing I like to point people to is the double empathy problem. And there's more and more research on that. Basically, the main study that I reference is these folks had a group of autistic people and a group of holistic people play a game of telephone. And both at the end, it both yielded similar results of like efficacy of communication. But it's when the groups were combined that the efficacy was much lower. Like they were not able to communicate as well. So there's this overlying idea of autistic people have communication deficits or we lack empathy. But really, 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 it's just a difference because autistic people know what autistic people want and need because it's their same wants and needs. But trying to express that to someone who does not have those experiences it's just really, really difficult. So I think it's important to, like Winter was saying, like, we are the experts on autism, being autistic.
And are there things you look for, Kat, in what is an ally, an holistic ally? Like, what's the difference between someone who is supporting autistic people and someone who's trying to fix autistic people in a professional context? Because I'm sure every one of your professors isn't necessarily autistic. But
Yeah.
how do you know what to listen to and what not to listen to?
You know, that's taken some practice. There's definitely some folks that have had some sorts of like sensitivity training, which I really appreciate, but you can really tell people that pinpoint, like, trying to make sure the person still feels like an individual without really listening to you, like just doing their job as they've been told to do it versus connecting on a deeper level. I have a letter that I worked on with Matt that I sent out to, or an email that I sent to my professors at the beginning of each semester. And I can kind of tell, like, hi, I'm autistic. I have communication differences. I might need some additional time on stuff because I also work full time. And how they respond to that is, I can usually tell if we're going to vibe or not. Usually if it's like, okay, got it. Or like, have you gone to the disability office, when there's literally a disability office like thing attached. It's like you didn't even read it or care. Cool.
Good tips.
There's a lot of people in the world who, a lot of allistic people who see us as sort of caricatures, like, you know, Sheldon for Big Bang Theory. And they'll like wear the puzzle piece and they'll like say, yes, I support the Tismses people. And yes, they're very helpful. But it's sort of like supporting Canadians. And wearing, you know, you got the big maple leaf shirt, you drink maple syrup out of a jar, but you don't know.
You watch Letterkenny.
Yeah. But you don't know any. You don't actually know any autistic, or you don't actually know any Canadians, and that's. I encourage you that if you want to be a good ally and you're not autistic, you learn from autistic people. You go out, make some autistic friends. You learn what it's like to live in the autistic world. And this is the thing about autistic culture, because I'm a firm believer that the world would be better off without small talk and eye contact for anyone, because there's only so many times that you can ask, hi, how are you? I am fine. Because even neurotypical people don't like that, and you don't have to do it. But it's this cultural expectation. And if you learn from autistic people, you might find that you like it, doing things a different way. And it's just, we need more people to listen to us.
And by the way, there are things that we take as autistic people from neurotypical culture or holistic culture that can be helpful, especially in certain situations. Like neurodiversity is good for the world. That's we're not to say everything about our culture is great. There's things I love about Japanese culture. There's things I love about Indian culture. So I know we will sometimes get comments that we're exclusionary. We're not excluding, but we are a place to represent our culture without, you know, we have to live steeped in the world of neurotypical norms all the time. So, but you will have to come to us as an holistic person if you would like to learn about our culture. It's going to take a little more effort.
And that's the thing about it, because again, I have no doubt that there's going to be a campaign to garner support for this movement to get ABA into schools. But we need understanding. We need people to know autistic people, to know how autistic people react to ABA. We need to know the long-term effects of ABA on autistic kids into autistic adulthood. And when people understand it, then they can be better informed and say, well, that seems like that's a big problem. And I really don't want people to suffer, because I would prefer nobody suffer. That's really the way of the world. But we really, really need a lot of support from autistic people, allies of autistic people.
Is ABA in, I don't know if you know this, but is ABA in schools in other states? Is this Kentucky catching up to other states, or would Kentucky be like trailblazing here?
Well, What were the statistics like? We're like 49th in the state, 49th in the country as far as autism care goes. I can't remember the statistics, but
something like that.
Yeah.
So there's obviously to get ABA, let's say, into schools in Kentucky, that's a pretty big budget.
Yeah.
What could that money be used for if we were going to budget all that money to help kids with autism? What do you think that the legislature should be thinking about, or the Department of Education should be thinking about, that would be better for autistic kids? Matt, why don't you share some of your ideas and we'll just do a little roundtable.
I would suggest hiring more educated special ed teachers, because again, if you hire a bunch, especially if you hire autistic special ed teachers, because if you have enough teachers to meet demand, instead of forcing autistic kids to be in a gigantic classroom being overstimulated all the time, then you can have autistic kids learn in a healthier environment to where they won't be overtaxed, they won't be overstressed, and they can learn in a way that works best for their brain. And I mean, honest to God, we need more teachers anyway. We need more school resources. We need bigger schools to accommodate children instead of cramming them into 30 kids to a classroom. The system is so inherently damaged at this point that we don't need to spend that much money on ABA. We need to spend it on accommodating. We need to spend it on helping kids learn.
Are there certain accommodations that you find that are particularly hard for kids to get that you wish more autistic kids were able to get access to?
So there are many schools have what we call snoozling rooms, sensory rooms, with like a swing and lights. And when a kid gets overstimulated and needs to leave the classroom, they go to this special closet that's like a trip into outer space. It's essentially the TARDIS in the classroom. So you go in and you turn on the sparkly lights, and there's like a disco ball, and you can swing around and you can regulate yourself. And these are great, except for they also say, hey, let's let it open to the kids who will also tear it apart. So they spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on these, special rooms for the kids who need it, only to maybe shuttered later on because the expensive stuff might get destroyed. So you may need a little bit of supervision while using it. But that's
a great one.
Yeah, there are tools out there. There are many resources out there to help autistic kids get regulated. You might need some more co-regulation. You might need training. You might need an animal in the classroom to come up and say, hey, have you noticed that you're fidgeting a lot more? Are you stressed out? Are you internally screaming today? And the kid can say, I didn't realize I was internally screaming because of my poor interoception. Thank you, classroom animal.
Maybe I will go to the sensory room.
Exactly. And so this is the thing. We really have to, we are at a place in the world where autism is finally being identified. There's finally a lot of autistic adults. There's a lot of autistic adults getting into jobs where we can finally make differences and make decisions. And this is why we need to listen to autistic adults in order to really think outside of the box, to think about how we can better change things for all kids. Yeah. And again, this is where the whole neurodiversity thing comes in, because as I don't know if you know this or not, but modern schools are based on the factory model from like the 1800s, where a town was built by the factory to house all the workers. And then they built a school for the workers' kids so that they would learn how to sit in place for 8 hours a day and build widgets at the factory. Right. And still we make kids sit in place for 8 hours a day instead of allowing kids to learn how they learn best, how to be mobile. Japanese schools are fantastic for letting kids get up and run around and learn and do what they need to do. There's this one great classroom. I don't know where it is, but you can probably find it in a video on YouTube, where the classroom is a donut. And when a kid gets up and runs off, they eventually come back because there's no place else for them to go. And you just keep on running and running and running. And that they get their energy out and they learn how to focus and they learn how to take care of their classroom, and they help cook food for the other kids. They build life skills. They build bonds. It's great.
We love sharing stories of autistic culture. And if you are seeing yourself in any of these stories and you're wondering if maybe you're one of us, or maybe you're already diagnosed or self-diagnosed, and you want to know if Matt can help you live your life better and be more authentically autistic, check out his website at mattlowrylpp.com. That's Matt, M-A-T-T, Lowry, L-O-W-R-Y. And then that LPP, it stands for Licensed Psychological Practitioner. So head on over to mattlowrylpp.com and learn more about working with my buddy Matt.
Great.
All right, Kat and Winter, I'd love to hear from you guys. If you had a pile of money, obviously we've got a state senator interested in helping autistic kids. What should this state senator do with that pile of money to help the autistic children of Kentucky? Either of you want to jump in with some ideas?
Autistic children tend to be the children of autistic adults. But, we often talk most about neurotypical autism moms. They're just a loud minority. And you may know autistic adults have an 85% unemployment rate, a certainly high disproportionate rate of homelessness, basic economic issues that affect their children just as much. So if I had a huge amount of money to devote to helping autistic kids, I would direct it directly at my class and help people who are unemployed and homeless and struggling.
Yeah, that's really, really great point that I think is definitely lost. I mean, if you've got more parents that are more stable and more food on the table and more stable living, that's gonna help your emotional regulation probably more than any sensory room ever could. So that's a great point, Winter. Kat, thoughts? What would you do with a big pile of money for autistic people?
Oh, take it all for myself. No, I'm just
kidding. No. She would buy a whole farm of animals. I think that
we're gonna get
be everybody. Dogs.
Yeah, we're gonna get an island called Autistica. It will have a petting zoo. No, I'm just kidding. I think I would just, similar to what Winter was saying too, but make sure that everybody's taken care of. Make sure that there are enough teachers, because if there's so many people or so many kids per classroom, and if there's underfundedness in whatever special ed programs that they have going on, no one's getting the attention that we need. Also, I know that Matt does stuff where he will go to schools or do Zoom calls and teach schools how to better handle, or whatever you want to say, autistic people, how to treat the autistic students. And I think stuff like that's really important.
Just training for existing administrators and teachers.
Yeah. I think that if every school had an autistic consultant, that would be neat. But go on.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. But also, I know that while we don't have strictly an ABA technically program at the schools here, I have heard of ABA practices being used on kids in school. So that stuff's that's already happening. So we could make that not be a thing. That'd be super great too.
Right. It's behaviorism is so deeply ingrained in every layer of society that of course it manifests in schools, which is an environment specifically designed to control people.
Right. I just feel like we're more advanced as a society. We talk about how humans are the superior animal and how big our brains are and all this stuff. And it's okay, well, why don't we listen to what the brains have to say then? Yeah. Instead of just focusing on behaviors. It's deeper than that. Come on, man.
So that'll be the subtitle of this episode. Come on, man.
Yeah.
So You guys all do advocacy work, and not everybody has the emotional or physical bandwidth to do this kind of work. What are some, this feels like it could be quite a fight. You've got a couple of options. You could like let it go and let them do their thing, or you can kick and scream the whole way, or, you know, try and find some compromise, which is always slightly soul crushing. Just kill fewer numbers of autistic people. Like what? So let's talk a little bit about how do you know that you can do this work and also take care of yourself? Like, how do you know when you need to take a break, when you need to step back? What are some of the signs that you see that let you know, oh, I'm not in a space where I can do this advocacy work? Matt, I'm going to start with you on that one.
The first thing that came to mind was everybody knows the Spider-Man quote, with great power comes great responsibility. But there's a lesser known Spider-Man quote that I always think about. I'll stop fighting 5 minutes after I'm dead.
Okay.
And yeah, that's the thing. As readers may, or listeners may notice, my voice is a little raspy today because my meat body has given out. And I have been doing a lot of advocacy work for others and for my own son recently, and it has taken a toll on my meat body. And we need to be able to balance advocacy and balance rest. And this is where a community comes in, because we find strength in numbers. No human being should have to fight a battle alone.
Yeah.
We need other people. We need support from other people. We need understanding from other people. We can't do it alone. And that's why we call out to the force to ask other people to join us in this battle, because the battle itself will kill us.
Yeah.
We need support, and we need rest, and we need to take shifts, and we need to organize.
Right.
And that's my spiel.
Winter?
Matt always just says everything.
That's why we love Matt. I mean, I think this is so important, that this fight for Kentucky kids is not just a fight for Kentucky kids. If ABA is put into every school in Kentucky, what other states will follow? Like, we can't be silent on these issues. And also, one of the reasons why our depression, anxiety, you know, self-harm behaviors, all of that increases, is these exact kind of fights, which are kind of crazy making. In what made me ask this was Kat's Come On Man. It's like, this stuff is not hard to figure out. Like, seriously, how many meetings do I have to get? Just read this.
Word.
So, Kat, how do you know? What are some of your signs where you're like, ooh, I gotta call in reinforcements? And do you feel like the community in Kentucky is there, that if you do need to take a step back, you can?
I don't know. I just kind of am still trying to figure out, like, I feel like there's this like blueprint layout framework of society, and how bright the lights are, how loud the music is, how much people can work. And that's like the neurotypical blueprint of stuff. And I have tried to force myself to do that my whole life, and I can't have to do it. Like, it's just not for me. So trying to figure out and make my whole new blueprint is super challenging. And sometimes I do push myself too much, but sometimes there's smaller, easier opportunities, like on discussion board posts when everybody's introducing themselves. Someone's like, I'm going to school to be an ABA therapist. And I get in and I'm like, hey, I'm autistic. Here's more information about how ABA is harmful. Maybe you might want to like switch up. So there's like small opportunities that, like, I got points for that assignment, whatever. Winter works hard 24/7, like really hard at a lot of the advocacy stuff. And yes, I'm super grateful for that. Absolutely. But sometimes I'm like, feel like I'm playing the long game with school. I'm like, if I get burned out and mess up at school and running my business and stuff now, then it's not going to pay off later. But that's just where I'm at. We're all different.
Yeah, it's just such an important fight. And I think it's more people are needed, particularly because of our neurotype. Like, we need to be able to build in those buffers. Winter, yeah, jump in.
Well, what I'd really like to say to advocates is we all get burned out, and it's not a matter of what like the person being burned out can do better, because we're all just doing everything we can in every moment to advocate for our people, but our comrades really need to be there for each other. And one particular problem that I see in autistic organizing is a lot of people who have jobs, and like they worry about if they are too vocal and too public, that it'll threaten their jobs. And it leaves a huge amount of the burden on the unemployed, impoverished people like me who can speak freely. And I don't think that I'm the only one in this position who would really just like to have more support from my comrades.
Absolutely. And that's one thing, because I've talked before that I have extraordinary privilege, because I don't rely on an employer who could fire me. I don't rely on insurance, which could not reimburse me. I am fairly vocal, and I tell people right up front that this is my position. If you want my services, this is what you're signing up with. So, but again, like you said, there are many people out there who are terrified because of the capitalism, because they but that burden should not be put on the people who have the least resources.
No,
Because
I mean,
people,
I think,
yeah, go on.
I wish they would not be so afraid. I mean, if their employer wanted to take issue with their advocacy, they could answer to all of us. You know, we could make a huge public organizing campaign about it if they try to retaliate against a worker for autistic advocacy, and they would not be alone.
Right.
And these are battles that must be fought. These employers who are restricting their speech in favor of their own people just for convenience of the agency or organization or company, that they need to be resisted. These workforces need to organize, they need to unionize, they need to demand these rights that their employers are taking from them.
Yeah, such a great point. Well,
it's
Matt,
not simply
go ahead, Winter, you can finish that thought.
So much when it comes to the sector of employment for autistic people, there's so much obsession on just getting people jobs, and there's not enough work being done actually making workplaces accessible, actually making them places where autistics will actually keep their jobs and live happy lives.
Yeah.
Thrive, if you will.
Yes. So Matt, as we kind of wrap this conversation up, what do our listeners need to know about the situation in Kentucky? How can they help? How can they be prepared to help? What should they be looking out for, listening for, setting up Google Alerts for?
Well, there was a video on KET about it I think it was like 2 weeks ago, but they need to search for ABA bill in school. They need to be vocal about we need services, we need acceptance, we need learning, we need understanding. We don't need to be cured. We need neurodiversity affirming approaches. We need autistic advocacy. We need to listen to autistic people. And again, we need to join together and communicate and organize and make our position known, because you may have noticed I'm a bit of a Star Wars fan. So I say, judge me by my size, do you? For well, you should not, because my ally is the Force, and a powerful ally it is. And when we are connected, when we are a community, when we talk to each other, and when we share our resources and just share our understanding and support each other, there is nothing we can't do. And if you feel alone out there, if you feel like people won't listen to you alone, reach out. We have Autistic Connections. You can meet people in there and we can organize together. And Winter has got a fantastic model for doing such things. Because y'all have been doing this for some time. And we need to show that, number one, we need to educate people that this is not the way. And number two, we need to talk about what is the way. And we can only do that by strength in numbers. We can only do that as a community working together to make Kentucky safer for autistic people. And once we show that there is a better way, once we show that we have community and we have support and that we can take care of each other, hopefully that will be a shining beacon for every other state and the world will be a safer place.
Yeah, there is an opportunity here for sure to turn this around and be a different model, but that's going to require a lot of effort. Winter, thoughts?
I wanted to interject there, but I'm autistic. But don't just try to search for this bill. Search engines are all just ChatGPT now. The name of this bill is House Concurrent Resolution 51. And it's currently in the House of Representatives in Kentucky, and it is at the stage of being at the what fucking committee? They passed the Education Committee. It is at the House Rules
Appropriations
Committee,
rules.
It's rules. It's not. They're not funding anything yet. It's not appropriations. But right now, it's still at a stage that we can fight this. We can't. I mean, I don't often say this about legislation in Kentucky. You know, it's just a completely fascist state, and we have absolutely no power over the legislature. But at this early of a stage, we actually do have a chance to stop it. What we're going to do soon is, with the statement that the council's writing, we're going to send this out to everyone, everywhere, and everyone will have all the information, talking points in a concise place. And we're going to begin a broad campaign of hopefully connecting with many other organizations and activists, and we're going to get people to try to stop their legislators from voting on this in committee and try to kill it right there before it can even get to a vote, and certainly try to stop it before it can get to the Senate, who are a completely lost cause. I feel like we really do have a chance to stop this if we act now and act fast and organize and counter-organize better than these autism moms. And I believe we can do that. We have a lot more organizing experience, and autistics are just better organizers.
Okay, we're going to link that up in the show notes, but if you are in Kentucky, definitely tell your representative to vote against House Concurrent Resolution 51. So we've got some action items for you all. The show here has been a special episode because obviously this is something near and dear to Matt's heart, but also because we advocate for autistic culture because it helps all of us. It helps not just autistic people, but anybody who loves us, which is everyone. You know someone autistic, even if you are not autistic. And we know what it takes to make the world a better, safer, and happier place for autistic people. And that includes putting autistic voices at the heart of it. So this is an example, but in your state or country, there is probably work you can be doing or are doing too. We would love to hear about that. You can share that in the comments because we want to know about your projects and efforts and be a part of that community to make the world safer for autistic people. And one of our greatest acts of resistance around here is celebrating autistic joy. So, Matt, I want to wrap this episode up with a little autistic joy roundtable. There's dark and hard forces that we fight, but we fight them with joy and love. I'm going to ask everyone here to share something you loved about being autistic this week. I'm going to go first, and Matt, you're going to go last. I'm going to go around. So I mentioned earlier in this episode, I got to go to Kentucky, and on my way, I had the most delicious autistic glimmer. I have no idea why. Usually sounds and lights in airports are super overwhelming for me, but on my way, the airport was really quiet. There were people there. Everyone was just like going about their business. Somebody was at a workstation working on their computer, and somebody else was sitting against the wall on the floor talking to a friend, and somebody was buying a bottle of water in the shop. And I have no idea what sort of magic came over me, but I felt so like in love and connected to everyone. It was like the most beautiful sense of community and connection and harmony. I wasn't like talking to anyone, but it was so magical. I just like burst into tears, and I was like, does this happen to neurotypicals? I don't know. And I have done an informal poll, and it is only autistics who knew what I was talking about. So I was like, what a weird little glimmer to feel so much more. And it sucks when it sucks, but man, it's so good when it's good. So that was my little glimmer. Winter, do you have a little something you loved about being autistic this week that you could share?
I think that my favorite thing about being autistic in the past week has been working on my interactive story, Ethic and engaging with the community around it with my readers, and like being part of a collaborative artistic project with other autistic and neurodivergent and trans people is absolutely the most amazing thing in my life.
Oh my God. I don't know if you have links to that or any of your art, but I would love to share that in the show notes too if you do. So send those over. That's awesome.
My link in the chat, and my website is translunar.academy.
Translunar.academy. Awesome. Amazing name. All right, Kat, tell us something you loved about being autistic this week.
Well, I have had a couple of different new friends come to visit, and they all have liked plants. And so I've gotten to info dump and share cuttings and stuff. And I don't know if any of them are autistic or not, but they appreciated the information. So it's nice to know that my special interest not only like brings me joy, but it brings them joy. And, you know, I didn't have to hold anybody hostage in order to info dump on them.
Yes, the only thing that is as good as info dumping given is info dumping received with love and respect.
Absolutely.
So that is awesome. All right, Matt, bring us home. Tell us something you loved about being autistic this week.
That actually is also my favorite, because again, when we were meeting yesterday, and we were all sitting around, and you're telling stories about India, and it was just it was the most autistic conversation I've ever had, and it was just fantastic. And we were all just sitting around, and clearly the neurotypicals were like, I'm just going to scoot a little over this way, and just info dumping and talking about geology and showing off your big crystals, and you know, just talking about showing off all the cool stuff here in my office, and all the stuff that you can't see on there that we'll put photos on the website. But
yeah, seriously, my guy, your organizational skills, I was always impressed like with my ability to like organize stuff the way I have like different categorization processes, and I have nothing on you. That was some next level organization. The game console stacked.
Oh, yes.
Oh my God. Yeah. It was like, I thought the mugs were good, but yes, you are the most like organized human I have ever. There's the categories. It was like a house of category. Everything was separated, and it was in the perfect place. And I would look in like a bin, and I would be like, everything there matches. And then I'd look on a shelf, everything there matches. So much matchy.
Tis the tism.
Oh, I loved all the matchy. It was like being inside those satisfied videos, the satisfying videos. It's very sad. You have a very satisfying home.
Oh, well, thank you.
Satisfying collections.
This is the way.
This is the way, you guys. Well, I am so grateful to everyone out there fighting for the kids of Kentucky. If you listen to this episode, even if you're not in Kentucky, we appreciate you being here and considering what's going on, and maybe taking a minute to look around at what's going on in your world for autistic people and in your legislatures. So would love to see your comments. You can rate and review the show on any podcast platform, but the best place to collaborate with us is on Substack. So if you want to hear from us, both Matt and I reply to comments. We talk to listeners all the time. You can email us, like carrier pigeons. I get message from you guys all sorts of ways, but what keeps them most organized for us is if you go to autisticculture.substack.com. When you go there, there's a gatekeep wall that asks for your email address. I can't make that wall go away, but there's a skip button. So if you do not like people telling you what to do, forcing you into giving your email address, you do not have to give us your email address to participate. We would love it, but you absolutely don't have to. Hit the skip button, jump inside. I know it takes a little while to learn a new platform, but just go to any episode. And if you comment, even if you comment on the wrong episode, we will find your comments. That's how we get notified. That is the single best way to reach us. For our paid subscribers, so this show is totally free. It will always be free, but we have some bonuses for people who want to donate and participate in helping us pay fair wages to our team. If that is you, there are fun bonuses. Like you can actually do a Q&A call with Matt and I. So every couple months we meet with our paid subscribers, and you can ask us anything. We've got one of those shows coming up very soon. If you would like to participate, all you have to do is be a paid subscriber. If you have the wherewithal to do that, and we will make sure that money is used for good ends to spread the message of this show. We also have a private book club that you will be indoctrinated in, where Matt and I will share what we're reading and why you should read it too, and some other goodies like discounts at our TeePublic store. So extras, special episodes, bonuses, all that good stuff for our paid subscribers, but the show will always be absolutely free on the main feed. So track us down. Please write a review. That helps other people find us. And we do appreciate our guests from the Kentucky Advisory Council on Autism for being here. Matt, that's all I got. You got anything else?
I just want to know who that cat is.
This is AON.
Oh. Because of course. Yeah.
A late visitor.
Well done.
Late visitor to the show. Well, thanks everyone. Thanks for listening. Thanks to our guests, and we'll see you next week.
Have a good one.
Thanks for listening to the Autistic Culture Podcast.
If you like this show, you can help other people find it by taking a few minutes to rate and review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts.
You can find out more about writing your book with me at differencepress.com. That's difference, DIFFERENCE, press, PRESS.com.
Or getting a psychological evaluation or consult with me at www.mattlowrylpp.com. That's MATT, Matt Lowry, LOWRY, LPP, as in licensed psychological practitioner.com.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and remember,
no one ever changed the world by being like everyone else.
special thanks to our content manager, River Robbins, and Aaron Stoner, our producer, for making us look and sound good.